Now, how happy are you with the way that you look? It's a bit of a big question, that, isn't it? We're so often presented with unrealistic ideals of body types, especially during these summer months. And new research suggests that 2/3 of UK adults feel under pressure to change the way they look and get into shape at this time of the year. But long periods of isolation and not socialising over the past 18 months has led to over half of us feeling less confident or comfortable in our own skin. Well, joining me now is body confidence activist and podcaster Honey Ross and Nadia Craddock, fellow podcaster and body image researcher at the Centre for Appearance Research. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Hi, thank you so much for having us on.
Thank you for being here. Now, this makes me feel quite sad, actually. I'm not going to lie, because I feel I'm very much like everyone, love yourself exactly as you are. But that's easier said than done a lot of the time. Honey, how does it make you feel to hear statistics that like 2/3 of UK adults feel under pressure to change the way they look?
I mean, it's obviously heartbreaking, but I also think one thing we can take away from it, if we reframe it, is that it's heartening in a way to see that so many of us are feeling in the same boat. You know, we are all feeling a bit wobbly after a really intense, strange year where maybe our bodies have changed, our social skills are maybe not the sharpest they've ever been because we've been locked inside for a while. You know, I think it's how you look at the information. And I think, yes, it's really, really sad, but it also is a wonderful jumping off point to say you're not alone if you are feeling like this.
And that's a really big thing, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people look at themselves in the mirror and think, oh, like, I wish I could change this or that. But actually, A, it's probably all stuff that only you're seeing. And B, loads of other people feel like that about their own bodies. Nadia, this is a huge issue for all types of people, isn't it? I think a lot of the time when we talk about body image, where people talk about young women, but that's not necessarily the case, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. People of all genders, all ages, all ethnicities are affected by body image concerns. There may be variety in that, but yes, it affects all people. And it's a really serious problem because how we think and feel about the way we look impacts our health, it impacts our well-being, it impacts how we show up in the world. So we know the research is very clear that negative body image, there's a direct link between negative body image and things like depression, anxiety, eating disorders, but then also in terms of how you show up in the world, how you relate to others, how you present at school, at work. And the new research from Bumble has showed that people are even cancelling dates because of insecurities around how they look. So it's really holding you back from living your like happiest, freest life.
That's really, I mean, cancelling stuff is a huge thing because then it's actually affecting your life at that point, isn't it? And you're a body image researcher, aren't you, Nadia, at the Centre of Appearance Research, which is great. But what do people tell you about their fears or insecurities about the way that they look? Are there any trends that happen?
So there's a number. There's a lot of concern around weight and shape. That's consistent and has been consistent for years, based on the ideals that we're presented with to be very slim, have low body fat. I think there's a more recent trend to have that slightly more lean look. So that's fairly consistent, and also the pressure from policies like and this weight stigma in society about being higher weight, and I think that puts real pressure on people also. So it's very easy to kind of blame things like social media or the media, but there's other messages out there that add to that layer of shame. But there are a number of things. There's different. I think what happens is when people compare themselves and internalize some of these messages, that's where we really see people kind of going down this path to feeling really low about how they look.
And one of the things that you mentioned there, which isn't, like you said, it's not, the only factor, but one of the factors is the images that we look at on social media and on TV. Like just the one thing that comes to mind right now is like Love Island, which is everywhere, and it's just the most perfect looking people on TV. Honey, how do you think that impacts people? And do you think we have to all be sort of more honest on social media and stop all the fillers and all that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, a couple of things, I think one, what is a perfect body. I think a perfect body is only what we make it. To me, that's not a perfect body. I'm my own beauty standard, and I don't subscribe to that. I think and I watch Love Island. I think it's a wonderful piece of entertainment, but like, I think with all of the things we consume, social media in general, let's consume it with a grain of salt. The fact is, we know most people use filters, Facetune. Instagram is rife with the highlight reel of people's lives. And very few influencers actually look like their photos, unless their whole shtick is showing you, the expectation versus the reality. And I think it's so important where you direct your attention, who you give your attention to, that permeates your life. And there are a whole lot of people fighting for our attention in order to capitalize off our insecurities and profit from them. So it's really important to just be really conscious and critical with any media you consume.
I think that's really great advice as well. And, when we talk about perfect bodies, when I talk about perfect bodies, it's the perfect bodies that have always been shown to us. Like before social media, it was magazines. Like, I don't know if you guys remember in magazines, like people just looked like that. It was all very Eurocentric, blonde, tall, very skinny people. But you're absolutely right. Perfect is whatever you want to make it, or whatever that looks like to you. Nadia, for the next generation of young children who they're growing up with social media in a way that no other generation really has, it's a tricky world to navigate, isn't it? How do you think that's going to affect us all?
Absolutely. I think it is tricky, but I also think people learn how to manage it in different ways. And I think there's also huge responsibility on the companies, on the platforms, when it comes to social media, to make it a safe space. And I think Bumble is a really good example of how platforms can take action, proactive action, to make these spaces safer. So Bumble, for example, have a zero tolerance policy on body shaming. So they have an algorithm, they have an automated service that flags up derogatory language around appearance, which is then moderated. And if need be, people are taken off of the app. And I'd love to see that across social media platforms to make these spaces safer, because yes, there's one thing that we can all do to try and resist all these societal appearance pressures. We can be very careful in terms of how we curate our social media feeds. We can be mindful of how long we spend on social media. It's not the be all and end all, but there's also a responsibility from businesses, from the platforms, to make these spaces safer and make it enjoyable, because it should be something that enhances our life, not takes away from it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I always think when I'm doing that doom scroll on social media. It's like, this is something that should be adding to my life, and if it's not, then that's a bit of an issue. Before I let you both go, Honey, what would be your message to anyone who's listening right now? And like we said, it's not just young people, older people can feel it too, different ages, ethnicities, who are feeling really self-conscious all of a sudden, or maybe they've always felt it about their own body and how they look.
My advice, one, I would want to say to a person who's feeling like that, you are enough. You are enough exactly as you are right now, and you do not need to change for anything that you have been told. You are absolutely good as you are. My advice is I found this really helpful for my relationship with myself, is catching myself thinking negatively about myself and stopping those thoughts in their tracks and going, no, you know what, actually, why am I thinking that? Where's that thought coming from? And then replacing that thought with something positive. And it can feel really alien at first, especially if you've spent years putting yourself down. But it's about chipping away, and it's about keeping up that practice of interrupting those negative thoughts and replacing them with positive ones. And it's incredible how much you can change your relationship with yourself by doing that.
It's so true, isn't it? We're so hard on ourselves, and sometimes the way that we speak to ourselves, we wouldn't dare speak to anyone else like that.
Never.
I think it's that kind of a thing that we need to all just take on board. Thank you so much, ladies, for being here with me today on BBC Radio Leeds. Body confidence activist and podcaster Honey Ross, and Nadia Craddock, who is a fellow podcaster and body image researcher at the Centre for Appearance Research, giving us the lowdown, giving us some advice on just a bit of self-love. How we view ourselves. Love it. We absolutely love to see it. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you. It's lovely speaking with you.